It was a typical day at Sunny Bites Diner, the din of the lunch rush echoing through the bustling restaurant. The clink of plates, the sound of the grill sizzling, and the hum of conversation filled the air. But amidst the usual chaos, there was a quiet figure working diligently in the corner. Tom, the new hire dishwasher. His head was down, his hands moving quickly and efficiently, but his eyes were keenly observing everything around him. He wasn't just scrubbing plates. He was taking in the full picture, the mood of the staff, the pace of the kitchen, the subtle cues that spoke volumes about the state of the business. Tom wasn't a dishwasher. He was Tom Reynolds, the CEO of Sunny Bites, a regional diner chain with over 100 locations spread across the country. Recently, the Eastbrook location had been plagued with reports of low morale, high turnover, and customer complaints. Curious to know the truth behind these issues and to find out what was really going on, Tom decided to go undercover. No one knew he was the boss. They just saw him as another employee in a white apron, doing his part. The first few hours were a blur. The staff rushed around, juggling orders, wiping tables, and trying to keep up with the lunch crowd. Tom worked quietly, blending in seamlessly. But the longer he stayed, the more he heard, and what he heard made him uncomfortable. "You know what's funny?" Sarah, a waitress in her late 20s, muttered as she passed by him. "We bust our butts here for minimum wage, while the boss probably sits in some fancy office, counting his money." Tom winced but kept his face neutral. He'd heard these kinds of complaints before, but now they stung in a way he didn't expect. "Seriously," Jake, one of the line cooks, chimed in. "We're always short-staffed, the AC barely works, and don't even get me started on the prices. None of that is going into our paychecks." Tom bit his lip. The criticisms were harsh, but they weren't unfounded. The staff was right to feel the way they did. As he washed another plate, he made a mental note to dig deeper. These weren't just complaints about wages. They were signs of a deeper issue, a systemic problem in the way the business was being run. "I heard we made record profits last quarter," Sarah continued, "and here we are, rationing napkins." Tom felt the weight of her words. It wasn't just about money, it was about respect. The staff felt neglected, like they were invisible to the people at the top. They worked hard, but they weren't recognized for their efforts. They weren't even given the basic resources they needed to do their jobs properly. As the day wore on, Tom's frustration grew, but he also felt a sense of responsibility. He had built this company, and it had become something he didn't recognize anymore. It wasn't just about making money, it was about creating a culture of fairness, respect, and community. He realized that the only way to fix this place was to truly understand the problems from the inside. And to do that, he needed to get closer to the people who were living those problems every day. The next morning, Tom returned early, slipping through the back entrance with the kitchen crew. As he walked into the break room, he overheard a heated conversation. "I'm telling you," Marco, the fry cook, said angrily, "my paycheck was short again. That's the second time this month." "Did you talk to Cheryl in HR?" Sarah asked, her voice dripping with frustration. "She said she'd look into it," Marco replied. "That was a week ago, and nothing." Tom stood quietly in the doorway, listening as the conversation continued. It was clear the workers weren't just upset about their wages. They were frustrated with the system that wasn't working for them. They felt unheard, ignored, and betrayed. "What about the overtime?" Mia, a soft-spoken server, asked. "They say we can't have it anymore. New budget restrictions." Meanwhile, the manager rolls up in a brand new car. Tom clenched his jaw. The disparity between management and staff was staggering. The workers were expected to give their best, but the company wasn't willing to do the same for them. This wasn't just about wages or benefits. It was about a toxic environment where the people doing the hard work were being taken advantage of. Later that day, during another chaotic lunch rush, Tom saw the manager, Rick, yelling at a dishwasher for being too slow. Tom's stomach turned. He knew the dishwasher had been covering for a coworker who called in sick and hadn't taken a single break in 5 hours. Rick didn't care. All he saw was a job that needed to be done, and if it wasn't done perfectly, he lashed out. Tom made a mental note to himself. Rick was part of the problem. He was a symptom of a larger issue, an issue that started at the top. The next few days passed quickly, with Tom fully immersing himself in the role of the temp worker. He scrubbed grease traps, unloaded shipments, filled in at the register, and did everything he could to learn more about the inner workings of the diner. But what he discovered wasn't just about the staff's dissatisfaction, it was about a fundamental breakdown in the company's values. "You know this place used to give bonuses," Jake said one morning while stacking plates. "Holiday ones, at least. Not anymore." "Bonuses?" Mia laughed bitterly. "I haven't had a proper lunch break this week." Tom nodded, pretending to stretch his back, but his mind was racing. It wasn't just the bonuses. It was the absence of a real benefits package, the lack of opportunities for advancement, and the failure to communicate effectively with the staff. The employees were doing their best, but they were constantly being held back by the company's unwillingness to invest in them. One night after closing, Tom overheard a conversation that stopped him in his tracks. Rick, standing outside in the alley, was pacing with a cigarette in hand, speaking loudly on the phone. Yeah. No one from corporate's ever around. I run this place how I want," Rick said. "As long as the numbers look good, they don't care." Tom froze. He knew Rick was a problem, but hearing him speak so openly about the disregard for corporate oversight confirmed what he already suspected. The culture at this location, and probably others, was broken. The next morning, Alyssa, one of the servers, quietly pulled Tom aside. "Hey, just so you know," she said, her voice low, "Rick's been talking about cutting your hours. Thinks you ask too many questions." Tom smiled softly, masking the anger that was bubbling beneath the surface. He knew it was time to take action. The following day, Tom arrived at the diner dressed in a crisp button-down shirt, neatly pressed slacks, and carrying a leather folder. It was clear that something had changed. The staff took notice immediately. Rick, standing in the kitchen, smirked. "New outfit?" he said sarcastically. "Trying to impress someone?" Tom smiled calmly. "Something like that." The shift continued as usual, but the staff couldn't help but feel that something was different. Tom wasn't bussing tables or washing dishes. He was walking around, observing, making notes. He was no longer just the temp worker. He was the man who had been quietly watching everything unfold. When the breakfast rush died down, Tom gathered the staff in the break room. "Everyone," he began, "I want to thank you for letting me work with you these past few weeks." Murmurs of confusion rippled through the room. Rick scowled from the back of the room, but Tom continued. "I've been undercover," Tom said. "Not because I didn't trust you, but because I needed to see what this place had become with my own eyes." He opened the folder and laid several documents on the table. His ID, a corporate letterhead, photos of him at ribbon-cutting ceremonies, and finally his name, Thomas Hastings, CEO and founder of Fresh Grove Diners. The room went dead silent. Rick's face turned pale. "I started this company with a vision of fairness, opportunity, and community. What I found here," Tom's eyes locked on Rick, "is the exact opposite." Alyssa gasped. Jake dropped his coffee cup. Tom walked toward Rick, his voice calm but firm. "You've lied to your staff. You've abused your power. And you've failed my values. Effective immediately, you're fired." Rick sputtered. "You can't do this." "I just did," Tom replied, cutting him off. Two men in suits who had been standing quietly in the corner stepped forward. "We'll handle his exit," one of them said, and Rick was escorted out of the diner. The staff remained silent for a moment, stunned. Then, as if on cue, someone started clapping. Then another person. Soon the whole room was on their feet, applauding. But Tom raised his hand, signaling for quiet. "I'm not here for applause," he said. "I'm here to fix this place, and that starts now." The next few weeks were transformative. Tom, no longer the temp worker, but the CEO, implemented changes that shook the very foundation of the diner. Wages were increased, benefits were added, and a new culture of respect and communication took root. Tom didn't stop there. He worked alongside the staff, side by side, learning their names, their struggles, and their aspirations. He became more than just a boss. He became part of the team. He led by example, showing that true leadership meant listening, empathizing, and acting with integrity. The diner became a model location, Employee satisfaction skyrocketed, turnover decreased, and profits began to rise. Word spread throughout the company and other locations started adopting the changes Tom had made. One evening after a long shift, the staff gathered in the break room for a small celebration. Alyssa raised her glass. "To Tom," she said, her voice full of warmth, "the boss who made us believe again." Tom chuckled. "To all of you, for reminding me why I started this company in the first place." And with that, a new chapter began for Sunny Bites Diner, one built on trust, fairness, and the courage to listen.